Welcome to Boosting FDA Warning Letters Regulatory Analysis with Generative AI, Part 2. 30 years ago, I had published a paper on computer-aided formulation design using artificial intelligence. So it gives me a great pleasure to revisit this topic in this collaboration with Ram. This presentation will build on his talk and my previous talk, and it's outlined as some quick thoughts on device versus drugs, CDRH and CDER differences at FDA, Ram's eSTARHelper observations of a warning letter, and my analysis using a standalone ChatGPT, initial interrogation of ChatGPT-4 with knowledge to probe its semantics and reasoning based on logic, some concluding observations, and possible next steps. The origin of eSTAR and eSTARHelper is in the devices sector. Center for Devices has a smart program which is submission, memo, and review templates. Is that appropriate for Center for Drugs is an open question. But I just wanted to give you this origin as a basis to frame the ensuing discussion. In my first talk, avoiding misrepresentation or making false claim was my major concern. Center for Devices, along with Health Canada and others, have come up with a set of guidelines or principles. Transparency for machine learning enabled medical devices. I've highlighted some of the key aspects that I'll focus on, but I'm most interested in real world expectations and relevance of what we approve at FDA and also what we do in pharmaceutical industry. I sense a growing concern with respect to substantial equivalence standard at Center for Devices, which is very different from therapeutic equivalence that needs to be managed over the product life cycle in the Center for Drugs. In CDER, post-approval changes similar to SUPAC or comparability protocol are likely to be in play, which is not the same as Center for Drugs. Almost exactly 20 years ago, at the Pharmaceutical Quality Forum third symposium in Tokyo, Japan, I presented a neural network, a proposed neural network called SUPAC IR neural network, as part of my talk on effective regulatory system, importance of process understanding, and quality by design. I moved to FDA in beginning of 1995. My initial responsibility was in part managing the SUPAC research program, and I was concerned with how does that research finding allow us to generalize the recommendations in our policies. So SUPAC IR research program was done in collaboration with several universities, particularly University of Maryland. Using that data, I tried to develop a neural network to see how well it generalizes to data that we have in new drug and abbreviated new drug submissions, and what does that tell us about the mechanistic understanding of how things happen with formulations, for example, dissolution testing. With respect to immediate release dosage forms, at least with the metoprolol tartrate example that we had, it was quite impressive. But this didn't hold for complex dosage forms such as modified release dosage form. So research to policy to practice needs good, valid representation of what is critical, what is not. And that is a basis for grounding language in knowledge. Following the generic drug scandal, the SUPAC research program and the Office of Pharmaceutical Science sought to take the first step towards science-based regulations. At that time, we were dealing with consensus opinions, 10x for a scale-up factor, 3 batches for stability, process qualification, irrespective of variance. But that was the reality. And the whole notion of quality by design, process analytical technology, the 21st century initiative was to move away from consensus opinions to more objective risk management. But at the moment, those defaults continue to contaminate our mindset. From behavioral economics, defaults have powerful influence and they can deviate our commitment to self-correcting science. So beware of remaining persistent regulatory defaults. As I mentioned in my first talk, complete response letters, 483 observations, warning letters are important feedback mechanisms that we have. And how do we improve continually? And how do we leverage these feedback mechanisms is a question in my mind consistently. So this is how we envision generative AI to help in this regard, is to make those feedback and the industry response to that feedback smart. So at the moment, we are working on a customizable AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning generated copilot grounded with confidential company-specific data, internal enterprise data, so that one could leverage large language models such as ChatGPT. And the intent here is to empower individual professionals as well as corporations to do things on their own and take responsibility for doing things right the first time. In part 1 of Boosting FDA Warning Letters presentation, Ram stumbled upon a set of interesting warning letters from his perspective. And I took that as a starting point for my thinking about where we are and where do we need to go next. So I utilized ChatGPT 4 and say, give me a draft response or reply to FDA warning letter. Impressively, it almost instantaneously produced a analysis of the warning letter as well as drafted the letter. Impressive on first glance, certainly. But hold on, was the thought. Upon review of the response I received and starting to probe, what are you assuming? Why this? It sort of gives you a clear perspective that computational semantics are impressive, but is reasoning logical or not? And this is not just my observation, this has been observation all across. For example, take a deep breath and work on this step by step. ChatGPT can pass the bar exam or a medical licensing exam. Does it actually matter? Large language models are zero short reasoning. Does OpenAI new model solve O1 solve the problem? So I think that's where my mind went to say, let me interrogate ChatGPT more carefully. How likely do large language models with chain of thought reasoning emulate human reasoning in problem solving scenarios? Human reasoning as in the case of expert human reasoning. Hypothesis that one can test is how we instruct causes the response to vary. Chain of thought reasoning is the basis for the answers we get. This is initial ad hoc attempt, but immediately I can say is be cautious. One needs to rigorously test these language models in practical real world scenarios, side by side with experts and so forth. And that work, I have not seen a proposal or an effort at FDA to be doing that at the moment. I may be missing it, but I haven't seen it. The next generation of generative AI, O1, is touted to be amazingly superior to ChatGPT 4, to the extent that PhD level science questions, it can beat PhD expert humans. I have not probed this deeper than simply collecting this information at this moment. And I am just starting to work with O1 to seek an understanding of what are its capabilities. So this is work in progress. With the system Ram has described, starting with eSTARHelper, now moving towards make your own AI using your confidential data to ground language in knowledge. One can think about the next generation O1 or similar large language models can then provide a basis for individuals and companies to really build their own system of generative AI system that not only has the computational semantics but the logical reasoning, and one can do that with the basis for reinforcement learning within the companies, to the company experts like the regulatory department expert, the quality unit, the R&D person expert, and all sitting together and then working as a team, multidisciplinary team, to design a set of their own training and probing questions that then with reinforcement learning can build their own generative AI that not only is an amazing collaborative tool that they can use, but also provide a basis of how it is processing information and knowledge, and have confidence in the output that it produces. So that's the next step in our thinking at the moment. How might a set of experts within a company come together, multidisciplinary, multi-organizational team come together to probe, to define the necessary training, as well as probe, interrogate their AI to ensure its, if not validity, verify that it is processing information in a logical sequence, the chain of thought process that is more transparent and provides confidence. So I'm simply relying on my own experience. The PAT framework can be used as a basis for grounding language in knowledge, where input, you have to carefully define the ontology. The output needs to be wise advice, but the processing has to really ask the question, how do we know what we know, epistemology? And process understanding as defined by the PAT guidance hinges upon predictability. And as you remember, the stage 4 of maturity of a smart factory is predictability. So to be objective in our analysis, and we need to be predictive so that we can predict something and verify whether our prediction is correct or not. To begin with definitions, yes, I think we can easily collect all the definitions and so forth, but there is a nuance to this. What is quality? Quality is not a quantity. Remember that. Currently, the FDA Office of Pharmaceutical Quality defines pharmaceutical quality is assuring every dose is safe and effective, free of contamination and defects. Now, there is a challenge to that definition, which the center director in 2002 has highlighted, that If you use compendial specification with zero tolerance, no unit shall be outside 80 to 1, whatever tolerance limit is with a particular standard deviation. If it's a normally distributed system, then essentially every batch is out of specification. So there is a continuing misunderstanding of how we use compendial tests, which are market standard. When tested, your products have to conform. Part of the training set and as part of interrogation to a generative AI, I started collecting my available information with respect to FDA's interpretation and presentations of, say, the warning letters and the response and so forth. I then outline a set of questions. How do you know what you know? Epistemological questions in the context of process validation, general principles and practices, along with the standards, ASTM standards referred to in this guideline, which was finalized in 2011. So how is the information being processed to produce an output? That's the question in my mind. I also collected all my previous presentations and also included standard text such as statistics and validation as part of the training program, and essentially to probe, is our learning reflective of the progression from to the quality by design framework or not. Having interrogated ChatGPT 4 with my prior knowledge, which actually impressed me of how it was able to pick up and learn from that, I posed a challenging question. Outline a strategy to prevent a warning letter. I used a case example from my practice, a pre-approval inspection of a company based in California, which makes a number of generic drug products similar to the metoprolol succinate ER platform and the coated beads products. Okay, so they have a number of products on the market, already approved market, and then there was a new approval. They were seeking a new approval for another product, and there was a pre-approval inspection, and there is 483 observations coming from that. In my way of thinking, this is still a legacy product because the quality by design type of development has not occurred still in 2013. So there are many questions that I won't get into this, but the key is what prior knowledge, what is the basis for objective risk assessment. Typically in legacy products, what we find is development of validation report contain no data supporting identification of critical process parameters or how the processing is justified, a common challenge. No data doesn't mean that the company doesn't know what it's doing. It's utilizing its expertise to make the product the best they can. The key issue here is lacking evidence. So the key objective is to bring out evidence from say 60 consecutive commercial batches. How can we analyze 60 consecutive commercial batches to say, all right, based on this experience, these are the critical process parameters, and here is the justification of our process qualification batches representing accurately the commercial batches. So we designed a strategy for that, and for more details of this, please refer to the link I have provided, and this was done in collaboration with Tunnel Consulting Company. Let me make some observations to conclude this work in progress collaboration. Wow, impressive, clearly. This is a double-edged sword. I could get addicted to LLMs is what I would say. In this process, the generative AI will get smarter with every interaction. I might get reduced to copy pasting. This is a double-edged sword. The potential is fascinating, but it can dumb us down. That's my caution. Reasoning of standalone ChatGPT 4, a black box, depends on what and how you interrogate. It can be valuable tool for the at the novice stage to expand awareness, and I think we want to do that. But to solve complex real world problems, I think we are not there yet. The next step really is to integrate the two parts of this presentation, one by Ram and this one, and think about the next generation, such as O1, to really offer a more transparent semantics, logical reasoning. This initial step in the collaboration sought to create a way to allow individuals and corporations build their own system that they can train and validate internally. And I think this was a very positive step forward, a promising beginning that we will pursue enthusiastically with the aim of grounding language in knowledge. Thank you for listening.